Hello garden friends, and welcome to my channel DK's Garden Oasis. I am Debbie, Master Gardener and Butterfly Raising Hobbyist, inspiring you to bloom, grow, and conserve in your garden. Today in my video I'm going to be talking about how to dig and store your dahlias for the winter. Make sure you stay till the end where I share an interesting fact about milkweed seeds. So over the past few weeks I've been preparing my dahlias for winter. I am in zone 5B, southwest suburbs of Chicago. The first thing that I did with my dahlias is back in October is I flagged all of my dahlias. I did have some tags that I put down next to each dahlia, but some of them broke off or disappeared, or the markings on the tag disappeared. So I'm not sure if I accidentally used a Sharpie, which will not stay the whole season on the tags. You have to use a garden pen. So a couple of the dahlias I'm not sure of. So next spring I am going to be using the method that I used last year in my garden once I do see the flowers. And last year's method, what I did was I took the tags and I stapled them to a paint stick. And I just put those directly behind that, and that was a great method for identification. For my new tubers for next spring, I am going to be gardening in a different location, and I'll be sure to tell you about that in a future video where all of the cut flowers will be next year. So make sure you stay tuned. But I will be using the same method, as I said, for my new tubers, using the paint sticks, unless I come up with another tried and true method. And if you know of a method, leave it in the comments below. If I find a picture from last year that showed the setup that I had, I will link it above. And I do have a video from last year, so if you want to check that out, I'll link that above as well. After I did that, we had a couple of frosts and a freeze, so I went back and we cut them all down and dug them up. Then we came home after a couple days, we rinsed them off. I dried them for a few days, and now I'm storing them. And here's a video of us digging out one of the tubers that overwintered actually in my garden from last year. Normally they don't overwinter in my zone 5B, but this one, the Japanese bishop, I happened to see it come up this spring, so I left it be and we dug it up. Okay, we're digging out our tubers. This happens to be in my garden. It was a Japanese bishop, so we're gonna dig it up. And you're gonna go away from the plant a few inches. It's gonna go around it and then pull it up. See what we have under the ground. Lots of tubers in there. Okay. The rule of thumb is if the freeze goes deeper than 4 inches, then the tubers will not survive. And what happens is they freeze and then they just rot and they don't survive. If you're in a milder climate, wait until after a killing frost and then you can cut them down and either use plastic and put a layer of mulch or straw to insulate and protect them. Gardeners growing in hotter climates like Florida, California, and Hawaii should dig, divide, and store in a cooler or refrigerator for at least 90 days. They need a minimum of 3 months in between growing seasons. It is also recommended that you cut down the stalks, wait 2 weeks after a killing frost. The tubers continue to harden up and you can see eyes more easily. Sometimes that's not feasible. Like in my case, I was growing somewhere else, so I did have to dig those up after the frost. And I did this last year and had no issues. So again, what I did is I left them with the soil on it until I was able to clean those, and then I let them dry for a few days. I do know that some people do store them as what's called dirty, and that's just where they dig them out of the ground and just leave the soil on them. For me, that takes up a lot of space, so I just wash them off and get majority of the soil off. You can also divide them right away. And I find I don't have the time to do that when I dig them up, so my method is to dig, wash, and store. And again, if you want to save room, the best way would be to divide them right away, because that takes up a lot less room. But sometimes I know that's not possible. If you do decide to divide your tubers, you would need to sterilize them first. It's very important that you do this so you avoid giving viruses to other clumps of tubers. So what you're going to do is you're going to put the clippers in a solution of 1 part bleach, 10 parts water, and then that will sterilize those clippers, and then you can move on to the next clump. This year I stored my dahlias in 2 methods. I stored in peat moss, vermiculite, and then I put a little bit of aspen bedding. It's the bedding for pets like rabbits or guinea pigs, and I put that on top, and then I moistened the soil and the tubers a little bit before I'm putting them in my crawl space, where the crawl space gets to about 50 degrees. So here's a video of all the supplies that I used for storing my dahlias. Okay, today is the day I'm going to be starting to store my dahlias. This is just my method. I have tried a couple of other methods. I will be doing some in plastic that I'll show you as well. Those I wrap plastic single tubers. Right now I'm going to just be taking the clumps and putting them in these boxes I got from Jewel. They worked out great last year. They've got holes, if you look on the side, so it has ventilation, and then I just put a paper bag for, just to, if there's any moisture on the bottom of the box. Here's some of my clumps. So some are starting to shrivel a little bit, like this one in particular. This one's starting to shrivel, and then of course this one has a hole in it, so I'll be cutting that one off. But what I'm going to do is I have my Johnny's sprayer, and I'm going to spray these all down because they've been in the garage about 5 days and they're starting to shrivel up, so I want to get these in the mediums right away so they store well. So what I use is I have some peat moss that I put on the bottom of this box, and I mix it with some vermiculite. That is good for aiding keeping moisture in. So I put the peat moss in, mix it with some vermiculite, and at the very top I put some aspen bedding. Now last year I did 1 box with just aspen bedding, and I found that a lot of them did shrivel up, but they mainly survived. But I'm just going to put it on the top layer just in case there's extra moisture. But for the most part, this is the 3 things that I use. I have my pruners, and this is that bag is just some extra peat moss from last year that I'll put in. So again, these are the ones that I'm going to be putting in this box that I'll show you. And I'm going to get rid of this box bin. This is one that I started already. I just put some paper on top just in case some critters get to it. But you can see I have the aspen bedding on top. I did spray it so it's a little bit moist, and I do check it about every 4 to 6 weeks and make sure there's moisture. So then I put that on top. It has ventilation from those side holes, and that is it. So I will show you a whole process of me doing one of these boxes. Okay, we are going to fill this box up with tubers, and I will show you my process. So like I said before, I line the bottom with peat. So I put a layer of peat moss, and then I sprinkle in some vermiculite. And then what I do is I spray some water, not a lot. This is my Johnny's sprayer that I use. I use this all season long. It's a great sprayer. I have to get myself another one because the top broke off. It tipped over and broke, but we fixed it temporarily, and I'll probably have to get another one. All right, so I've got a layer in there. And then this is one of the tubers. Now you could see some of them are shrinking up, so I will, whoops. Well, I'll just cut off I'll cut some of the roots off. And this is my flagging tape. It should have a name on it, or it just means red, that it was a red flower, and I'm gonna have better recording next year. You don't want them to touch, because if it starts rotting, like this one right here, this one is definitely one that I can cut off. If you can see that, I'm gonna cut that off because I don't want it rotting in there. So you don't want it touching another tuber, because then it's gonna do the same to the other tubers. So I'm just gonna lay that in there like so. A little bit of top dressing of aspen bedding. And then I'll wet that down. Hopefully this will keep the moisture. Again, I tried just using this bedding last year in the box, and I found that most of the tubers did dry out. So I'm just going to use this as a top dress. So here we have some single tubers that I'm just going to be wrapping in plastic, and this method worked really well last year. What you have to make sure when you have a tubers, you have to make sure you have the crown, the neck, and the body, and these are the roots. So you can take off the roots if you want to clean them up, but what you have to do is you can wrap more than one in the plastic, but you have to just make sure that it's wrapped around so they're not touching. So what I'll do is take some plastic and I'm going to take this first tuber, I'm going to roll it up a couple of times, and then I'm going to take the next set. Now I can separate these, but I'm just going to keep this clump together, so I'm just going to get rid of these roots and this stem. Clean it up just a little bit. And these I don't happen to have the varieties on those, so it will be a surprise until next year, and then once the flowers bloom, then I will be IDing those. And I also have some from Floret Seeds. This was a second year floret, and it had a tuber, so I will be planting these. And so we're gonna roll these up a couple times. I'm gonna take this tuber, cut off a little bit of that root there. Again, you have the crown, the neck, the body, and wrap that up. Clean this one up. You want to make sure they're not squishy or they're rotten at all. And then I'm going to be putting them in the same box as I had my peat moss, but I'm just going to keep these in the plastic. So I am going to wrap these guys up, and that will do it for this year. I'm going to finish these up. I have a few more to do, and my dahlias will be stored for the winter. I hope this video was informative and gave you some advice as to how to store your dahlias. So give this a like and share with your gardening friends if they're looking for a method to store their dahlias. Next week I'm going to be storing the rest of my bulbs, my gladiolas, my lilies, and my elephant ears, so make sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell for that future video. Now I want to share that interesting fact about milkweed seeds. Thanks for watching and happy gardening. Bye-bye.